98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98FM.
As you will know, tomorrow radio stations and television stations are prohibited from discussing it because of what's called the moratorium. So today is our last opportunity to debate the referendum on Friday. And in the next while, we're going to be talking to 4 invited guests. 2 from the yes side, 2 from the no side. And these are people with personal reasons as to why they are voting the way they're voting. And then a little bit later on, we will take your calls. We want to hear from you on 6797 981. What way are you voting and why are you voting the way you're voting? My first guest is a gentleman called Gavin Boyne from the no side. Gavin, welcome to 98FM.
Thank you for having me.
Gavin, you say that you owe your life to the 8th Amendment. Why?
Well, basically, there's a whole story behind it. When my mother was 15, she fell pregnant with me as a result of a one-night stand. And given kind of the circumstances of my conception, you know, coming from a working-class background, money being tight, the likelihood and the actuality that my father would not be around, my grandparents had decided that the best thing to do would be to send my mother to England for an abortion. And so my grandparents sent her over while they were arranging everything at home, and my mother was there for 3 weeks. Now, in those 3 weeks, my grandparents were kind of deliberating as to what exactly it was that they were doing. And obviously they came to the conclusion that ending my life was the wrong thing to do. Now, the reason why they came to this conclusion is because while they were kind of talking about what they were planning on doing, they asked themselves, essentially, the main question that they asked was, well, why is abortion illegal here in Ireland? Why can't this be done at home? And of course, what they found was the 8th Amendment, which indiscriminately acknowledges the right to life of every single unborn child, regardless of whether, you know, that child is male or female, able-bodied or not, black or white. And so without that illegality, if you will, without abortion being illegal here, to say if it was illegal here, they wouldn't have asked that question and they wouldn't have came to the recognition that I was a human being, which is what the 8th Amendment recognises for every single unborn child. So without that, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay, so your mother was 15 years of age. She found herself pregnant. I understand that there was also the possibility that you may not have been a white baby, and they were all factors in the initial consideration. You talk about your grandparents deciding, about your grandparents insisting on your mother going to the UK. Did she have any say in the matter?
The say which she might have had would have been incredibly limited. It was an incredibly difficult and stressful time for everyone involved, really. And everyone was acting kind of with the best interests in mind. But ultimately, I'd say the decision came down to my grandparents. And
their initial decision was that she travelled to England. And over a period of 3 weeks, you say your grandparents changed their mind, and that was primarily because of the 8th Amendment. And they looked into it and came to the conclusion that having an abortion was not the right option.
Yeah, it was in recognition of my humanity. Now that I was a human being, that I wasn't just a clump of cells, which is, you know, the kind of rhetoric we hear all the time now. I was, you know, a developing child, and they couldn't then have me killed.
Now, as I said, your mother was 15. 15 is not an ideal age to be having a child.
No, not at all.
So, after you were eventually born, how did your mother cope at such a young age with a baby?
Yeah, look, 15 is definitely not an ideal age, not at all. And it would have been incredibly difficult for her. But I suppose what really got her through it was the support that she received from her family and her friends. Without support, it would have been incredibly difficult to do it. But she managed somehow, and here I am, 20 years old in Trinity College, studying something that I love, philosophy, and life seems to be, going well enough for me.
Which is fantastic to hear, it really is. But let me just go back to this 15-year-old having a baby. Not all 15-year-olds in that sort of situation would have the sort of support that your mother appears to have had.
Yeah, that is definitely true, which is why I really think the government, that's where I think the government should come in to the equation and to actually offer real supports for women who, might be in very difficult situations like my own mother was. Abortion really, it's not a solution. I think it's a cop-out on the behalf of the government. It's not caring, it's not compassionate. It intentionally ends the life of another human being. And, we can't really, in 2018, call that support, because it's not. I think if women felt, and not only my own mother, but to the women out there who, are going through difficult times with their pregnancies, if they felt as if they had the support of just one person, and I've heard this myself, given the nature of what I've been doing, campaigning over the past few months, I've met incredible people and women who've had very difficult pregnancies. And something I've heard quite frequently, actually, is, from women who have had abortions and women who've kept going through with their pregnancy, is that if they had have had one person say that they could do it, that would have changed everything for them. And so really, I think, I'll give you an example, actually. There's roughly 20 or 30 homeless pregnant women in Dublin today, right? Simon Harris could have addressed this. He's had the time to do it. Yet, instead what he's essentially offered these women is abortion. They don't need abortion. What they need is adequate healthcare, accommodation, financial support, social supports, etc. Not abortion. I really don't see abortion as a solution, because at the end of the day, it is taking someone else's life.
Now, you say that the Eighth Amendment saved your life, and you're here to tell the story. The argument is, from a lot of people, that the Eighth Amendment doesn't actually prevent abortion at all. In fact, if anything, it just exports the problem and imports the problem in terms of abortion pills, which is a huge issue now, where women are taking these pills without medical supervision and so on. So what do you say to that argument? The Eighth Amendment actually doesn't stop abortion at all.
Yeah, look, I've heard that myself a lot, and what I'll say is no law in any country, anywhere in the world, or provision for that matter, 100% eradicates any issue, right? That's not going to happen. In an ideal society, perhaps that would be the case. But, I don't think people would say that the ban on drink driving, for example, I don't think people would say that doesn't prevent people from driving under the influence, everyone, that is. And people acknowledge this. But there was an actuarial report, an independent actuarial report commissioned, and the results of that have found, and conservatively at that at least 100,000 lives have been saved by the Eighth Amendment. Now, how it's done that is, it hasn't physically, obviously, restrained women from procuring abortions, but laws and provisions shape the cultures in which we live. So I really do think that the Eighth Amendment has saved lives. I know it saved at least mine. And if it has saved at least one life, well then I think it's done its job. Because at the end of the day, what it was designed to do was protect the unborn child and to give them rights. And as per a very recent Supreme Court ruling, the only right that the unborn child has is the right to life. Now, you also mentioned abortion pills. In every single country where abortion is legal, people are taking abortion pills illegally, right? We can't necessarily solve that. But I have to say as well, there's this idea being pushed around by the yes side, and they're saying that, if women are taking these pills and something goes wrong, that they can't go to anyone about it. That is a blatant lie, and it's a very dangerous lie, because this is a reality that women are taking abortion pills, and we have to deal with that adequately. But to say that they can't get help if something goes wrong, I think is not only scaremongering, but it's very, very dangerous to say those kinds of things. Women can get the support they need if something goes wrong after taking an abortion pill. But again, the actual taking of the abortion pill doesn't occur inside the GP's office. You know, it's something one would do within the comforts of their own home. So if something were to go wrong, the chances are they wouldn't initially have any kind of medical support. The same applies whether that is legal or not. But the key message I think to take here is that women can get the support they need.
Gavin, with the vote just 2 days away, in one sentence, tell our audience why you would like people to vote no.
The Eighth Amendment affords unborn children their only right. It gives them the right to life. And what we would be doing if we voted yes on May 25th is we would be removing the Eighth Amendment and in its stead the 36th Amendment, which would allow for the Oireachtas to legislate on abortion. So what we would be doing essentially is we would be removing the right to life, a provision which saves lives, and in its stead we would be replacing it with a provision which allows for the taking of lives. And I don't think that's acceptable for the most vulnerable in our society.
Gavin Boyne, thank you very much indeed for joining us on 98 FM.
Thank you for having me.
My next guest is Katie, and Katie is in favour of a yes vote. Katie, welcome to 98 FM.
Thank you.
Now, you on Friday will be voting yes, primarily because of your own personal story. Take me back to 2015.
Yeah, I was 23 weeks pregnant and we were just gone to the hospital for just a routine checkup, and we got scanned. We were all excited in, and we got scanned and we were told then that our baby had no kidneys and no bladder. And I remember just running out of the room because I kept asking him, well, what's going to happen when he's born? But he told me that he wouldn't survive birth, or then I wouldn't go to term with him. And I remember just running outside, bawling my eyes out, sitting on the bench. Some man came over and just put his arm around me and told me I'd be okay. Then the hospital, it was the Lord's Hospital, they were referring me to the Rotunda, and it was taking 2 to 3 days. But I couldn't wait that long, so we went on then to get a private scan. We got one in Blackrock, so I went straight up, paid 170 for the scan, and then that woman confirmed it all for us then.
So your baby developing inside you had barely any amniotic fluid, the baby had no kidneys.
Yeah, it was when we went for that scan in a Rotunda, it was more of a detailed scan. That's when they told us that he'd holes in his heart, he damaged his back. His back was so bad, like it wasn't just any normal spina bifida, it was the worst case he could have. His brain was so damaged, and then all the holes in his heart. Didn't find out how many holes he had in his heart until we went to Liverpool that time. But,
okay, so here in Ireland, you find out that your child has zero chance of survival once outside the room. So what sort of support or care was offered to you?
We didn't really get any support or care. We were just given 2 options. Now, the nurses, the midwives are lovely, but they could do nothing for us. We were brought into a room then, and that's when I thought they were going to tell me that I was going to be started, or they were going to induce me or give me a section. But we were brought into the room and they just gave me 2 options. I can carry on with the pregnancy or I can travel to Liverpool. And when I heard that with Liverpool, my heart just sank. I couldn't believe that was the only thing that they could do for me, even though Luke had no chance of life, nothing at all. So we were just absolutely devastated.
Okay, so you were essentially told that you had to wait for the baby to die inside you.
Die inside me, yeah. Yeah, we had to go we were told we'd have to go for a scan every week to check his heart, to see if his heart stopped beating. And even to be told that, absolutely horrible, like just waiting. We were sitting waiting for him to die, and then we got to the stage we were hoping kind of would his heart stop beating, just so we wouldn't have to travel. But it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Okay, so you eventually made the decision to travel to Liverpool. What was that decision like?
I'll never forget it. It just felt like we were doing something wrong. It felt, even though I knew we were doing it for the right thing, we just felt like criminals, even going on a plane on the way over. And if we didn't have the money that time, we were just blessed that we could get the money together. If we didn't have the money that time, like, I don't know what we would have done. And the people that don't have the money don't have the option because of money, like. But to book them flights, and then we had an auntie living in Liverpool, so we were kind of lucky enough. We had accommodation there. But to say goodbye to everybody then that night and get on that plane and go over was just one of the hardest things. I was on that plane knowing that I wasn't going to come home with. He was in my belly, and I knew when I was coming over that he would have been gone. Like, horrible.
So before you left for Liverpool, you went back to the Rotunda for one final scan.
Yeah, and he actually told me that the scan was just to make sure that his heart didn't stop beating, because they were hoping that it would have stopped beating. They were saying instead of me travelling over to Liverpool and going over to Liverpool and finding out that his heart stopped beating over there, like, after travelling. But no, his heart was beating away. And that's what he couldn't get over. His heart was beating away perfect, but he'd so much wrong with him. That's the only reason why they couldn't do nothing.
Because his heart continued to beat. Yes.
Yeah.
So you travelled to Liverpool. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. It was only me and my partner going over. Our families wanted to come over, but just with missing work and everything, like, I wasn't going to be selfish and ask them to. So it was only me and my partner that went over. And, like, we were only 21. Oh, I'll never ever forget. That's the part I'll never forget, having to travel. And we went over, and we had one more scan. This scan was to see if, even if he had any chance, he wouldn't have induced me. And I was told that. And I was kind of praying as well that maybe that Ireland did get it wrong and he would have a chance. But no, he'd nothing. The machines over there is more, like, they're better than the ones in Ireland. This one was anyway, and I went into detail of everything. It went into it could zoom into his heart and just all the holes in his heart. And his head was so badly damaged with the fluid, and his back. They told me if I went to term and I gave birth to him, that his back was so bad when he'd come out, his back would break, and his lungs would have filled up with the fluid, so he would have drowned in his own fluid. So I couldn't do that to him.
So shortly thereafter, you were induced, and tell me what happened next. Yeah,
we were induced, and then my partner went outside for a minute, and he rang in. He ended up coming in with my mum and my dad and my sister, and his mum and sister. They come over. He was after setting up, and only for them, I don't even think I would have got through it, because we just felt so lonely. Only the two of us there, and felt punished for nobody being able to see our baby. Like, just felt so punished. But after 10 hours, then he was born, and I'd never forget. And, like, the nurses over there and everything were brilliant with us. They had so much respect for us. They didn't treat us any different. They were brilliant. But we could stay the night. We stayed the night with him then, and he came out perfect. He was absolutely perfect. The only thing was his foot. His foot was bent. His left little foot was completely bent, and they said that was from lying in my womb, lying against the wall of my womb with no fluid. And he said if I had kept going to term, his arms, his face could have went deformed or anything, because he's lying against my womb with no fluid. He'd no room to move, so his little foot completely bended. And other than that, he was absolutely perfect looking. And then after, that was on the Wednesday I had him, and it was the Saturday. Was it a Saturday? I think it was the Saturday we had to go and get him. And we bring him home then. We were told, we wanted to bring him home in the plane. That's what we thought would happen. But he told us that we'd have to put him in with much luggage, and he'd be on a different flight with us. They were telling us everything, that he could get lost or anything. So we just said, no, I'm not taking that chance. So we had to take the ferry home, and it was my partner's dad had to come over from Ireland to get us on the ferry to bring him home. And we were told he had to be in to boot the car,
so that nobody could see a little small white coffin.
Yeah, like, even that was horrible. Like, having to walk out of Liverpool Hospital with the coffin in your arms into the car at the back of the hospital, knowing that you have to hide him in the boot of the car, is absolutely horrible. Again, like, we just felt so punished. So
you essentially had to smuggle your dead baby back into Ireland?
Yeah, well, they gave us papers and all that. We were given papers just in case the guards stopped us and thought it was anything, like drugs or anything. So they gave us these papers, and that's what we were waiting for as well, the papers to get signed. But we had them both. They told us, I wanted to put them on my lap, but no, they wouldn't let us. He had to be in the boot of the car.
Subsequently, after that experience, how do you feel about the fact that hospitals here were not able to do anything to help you, and you were left with the option of having to go to the UK?
Yeah, I just think it's an absolute disgrace. Like, the midwives, the nurses, they all wanted to help me. They said if they could help me, they could. But they were saying because of the law that they just couldn't. Like, their hands were completely tied. Even though they want to help you, they're just not allowed. Like, they knew the right decision for Luke to travel over to Liverpool because of how sick he was. He had no chance of life at all. Like, you'd think of these are miracles, whatever. Like, there was no miracle with him. He can't live without kidneys. The nurses can't do anything, with this law. Even how much they want to help you, they can do nothing.
Okay, finally, Katie, tell me in one sentence why you think on Friday people should vote yes.
Because nobody should have to suffer the way we should suffer. Nobody should have to travel to England to get birth into a different country and then smuggle their baby home in the boot of a car. Nobody should have to go through that pain. The heartache that it took for us to go over to Liverpool, I'll never ever go over. They're treating us like it's not the Stone Age we're living in. It's absolutely disgusting, so it is. The same way women having abortion, whatever, it's happening every day in Ireland anyway. Like, why are you making these women suffer even more? Us travelling over to Liverpool was even more necessary pain. He was never ever going to survive. Voting yes can change all this. Voting yes, the women in Ireland can be treated and you can get the health care you need in Ireland instead of putting us through more pain than we need.
All right. Well, Katie, thank you very much indeed for joining us on 98FM.
Thanks very much, Aidan.
Now, we want to run a Dublin Talks text poll over the next while, and we have a very simple question for you. And that is, what way are you voting on Friday? Yes or no? And we ask you yes, no, or undecided. Okay? That's what I want you to do. Text yes, no, or undecided. Only one vote, please. Just vote once by text message only to 0877 98 98 98. So once again, I want you to text the word yes, no, or undecided to 0877 98 98 98. We're very curious to know what way you are going to vote on Friday, and we want as many votes as possible to try and make it as accurate as possible. Okay, so text yes, no, or undecided to 0877 98 98 98. Now, as I explained to you already, we have already previously invited 4 different guests onto the show. 2 who believe we should vote no, and 2 who believe we should vote yes. So you've just heard Katie, who thinks we should vote yes, and we spoke earlier to Gavin, who thinks we should vote no. And our next guest is also somebody who believes that we should vote no, and her name is Amy Louise. Amy Louise, welcome to 98FM.
Thanks, Adrian. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now, you have joined the debate on the referendum on Friday somewhat late, in that you've only publicly spoken about it for the first time on your social media page. What made you decide now to speak out about the referendum?
And you're right, it is very late, and it was rather reluctant, but I just, when you're scrolling through your news feed, and I just saw so many comments and posts about how close-minded people were for voting no, and I kind of held my tongue so long, and then I read so many of them, and I had done my own reading, and I just said, it's not because I have a closed mind. I have my own opinion, and I'm going to put it up, because I felt like I wasn't really seeing anything. Well, I was seeing some to do with the no vote, but it was mostly people saying, go back to the 80s or the 70s if you're going to vote no.
Okay, so people were describing no voters or planned no voters as old-fashioned or ignorant, and you decided, I'm not having that.
Yeah, because I said to myself, it's not just... They were kind of saying, it's old people and it's nothing to do with these people or people who don't know. And I sort of said to myself, well, actually, I have a little baby here and she's only 4 months old this week, and I've been through a miscarriage as well. So, and I had my own reasons, obviously, but, I just said to myself, well, I'm not making this decision with a closed mind, so maybe it is time somebody wrote something. So I sat down this morning and typed up a little post.
Okay, so your post is mentions the fact that you yourself have a young baby, that you found out you were pregnant at exactly 12 weeks, and it was the first thing that you highlight in your post is about that baby scan.
Yeah, I put up the scan because even I myself, when I was pregnant, I didn't know, and when I found out, we had a scan there and then actually, and I couldn't believe how developed the baby actually was, and I just sort of said to myself, I wonder, do people actually realise? Because people think that everything's an exaggeration, you know, when people are trying to get your votes, and I don't know if they think the pictures are real, and I said, well, this is my very own picture, and it was exactly 12 weeks and 1 day.
And you described that the baby was smiling?
Yeah. Well, now not at 12 weeks. Now that I've another scan picture there where she was smiling.
Oh, right,
that was
okay.
At 20-something weeks. No, not at 12 weeks she wouldn't be. But she was sort of, you know, swimming around in the belly and doing her little somersaults and moving around there, you know, alive, certainly, you know, not a ball of cells anyway, and certainly not what I expected to see, because at 12 weeks I didn't expect to see all of that. Now, I didn't know. Everything was a huge shock, to be honest. But it was a fully formed baby. The picture's there to see, you know.
But there is a reason that you have come down on the no side in this debate, in that you will be voting no on Friday. And it's a story to do with a close friend of yours and her pregnancy.
That's right, yeah. I won't say her name, but yeah, a friend of mine, her baby is just 7 months old now. And she had a miscarriage 2 years ago. She was pregnant with a little boy, and when she was having this pregnancy, she's had a lot of complications now, but she was in the hospital and they said the baby had moved into her fallopian tube and that she was almost certainly going to miscarry and that she just had to sort of wait on that to happen.
Okay, and was that similar to her pregnancy 2 years previous?
That's exactly what happened, where she had a little boy and he was in the fallopian tube and he didn't make it.
Okay, but so she did have history for a pregnancy like this, and it was expected that she would miscarry this child as well. Exactly,
yeah. So she would have been a prime person who could have been told, oh, well, if this has happened before, and they said, we're certain this is going to happen now. You know, she could have been someone who could have aborted her baby, and her baby's made it, you know.
Was that something that she ever considered?
She didn't say to me now that she had considered it, in fairness, but she did just say to me, it's something to think about, because she said, look, I didn't have an option anyway, but she said, if you had an option, it's scary to think. So, I mean, I can't speak for her, but, you know, maybe.
Now, we spoke to another woman just a while ago who described how the child that she was carrying with really severe disabilities, it was not going to be born alive and so on. She told about the tragedy and the pain and the heartache of having to travel to the UK for medical intervention, which she couldn't get here. Do you think that it is fair on people like that to have to continue with the pregnancy until the baby essentially dies?
I do sympathise with her, but, you know, like in my friend's case, what if they were wrong? You have to take these things into account. I know 1 in a million that it could be a miracle, but, you know, my friend is after having a miracle, and, you know, even if they're 100% correct, it's just not something that I could do. It's not something I could live with, to actually think that I've ended this life myself. And, like, having had a miscarriage myself, I don't think getting through it any quicker. Now, I know there's the physical pain in that, but I don't think anything's going to take away the mental pain of losing a child anyway, you know.
You describe your friend as possibly, if we had a situation that there could be medical intervention here in Ireland, that may have happened, and that child that turned out to be a perfectly healthy child may have been terminated if that sort of procedure was available here in Ireland.
Yeah, her exact words to me were, it's scary to think. And she didn't say she would have now, but she just said, it's scary to think. You know, so...
Okay, so if medical staff had been able to intervene, you argue that perhaps that child would not be here today.
Yeah, basically. I mean, especially with her history and the fact that they had said to her, you know, that they were certain she was going to miscarry. I mean, they wouldn't say that to her if they didn't really feel. So, you know, if there was an intervention, almost certainly that would have been offered in any event. Whether my friend chose to take it or not, I don't know. But, you know, it's scary to think that they could get it wrong, you know.
One of the main thrusts of the Yes campaign is that we here in Ireland should not be exporting our problems, that we have abortion in Ireland, whether we like it or not. Abortions are happening in this country every day, albeit illegally with pills and so on. How do you respond to those criticisms that we're just exporting or indeed importing our problem with terminations here in Ireland?
I don't really think that's 100% correct to say. I know that there were some figures I read online that there was, I think, 12 women a day leave Ireland to go for an abortion. But I would imagine if it was readily available in Ireland, those figures would be a lot higher. Insofar as importing the problem with the abortion pills, I read a bit about that as well. And like in the UK, they have that problem as well. Even though they have access to abortion, there are still people, maybe it's shame, maybe it's just, I don't know what the reasons are, maybe it's cheaper, easier, I haven't looked into it, but it just seems that that problem is in the UK anyway, even though they're offering abortion. So I don't think we're importing a problem anyway. As far as exporting goes, 12 a day, I don't know how many abortions are performed in the UK a day, but I imagine it's probably more than 12.
Yes, it is. Obviously, a lot more than 12, I should think. So your main point is that just because you plan to vote no doesn't make you old-fashioned, doesn't make you ignorant, and your decision and your reason for voting no is based on the fact that the Eighth Amendment saves lives. Basically,
that's pretty much it. And I just think as well, like when you're pregnant, I know there's different circumstances, but for me, it was always to me that my baby was first, and that was it. And you do what you have to do to make sure your baby's okay. And I went through a horrific birth. I couldn't have any pain relief myself in the birth because my baby's heart rate was so unsteady. And they did actually offer to give me a C-section, but the anaesthesia would have been a risk for the baby as well. So I said no, and I sucked it up. And I'm not in any way bravely, don't get me wrong, but still, you do what you have to do to make sure your baby's okay, and just the thoughts of, there's a lot of figures out there, and something that stood out to me a lot was the 90% of people who found out that their child had Down syndrome terminated their pregnancy. I can't imagine any Down syndrome person standing in front of you saying that they'd rather they were terminated. A lot of them live perfectly normal lives, and it's a life at the end of the day, no matter what's wrong with your child. And I don't mean to just pick Down syndrome, but that's just a figure that I read earlier on, and I went, oh my God, 90%. Like, who gets to play God? Who gets to make that decision? It's just wrong.
Okay, finally, Amy Louise, in one sentence, why do you believe people should vote no this coming Friday?
Because I think that the unborn children deserve a voice, and they don't have their own voice, so we need to do it for them.
Amy Louise, thanks very much indeed for joining us on 98 FM.
Thanks so much, Adrian.
Now, if you haven't voted in our poll yet, please do. We're asking you a very simple question. In Friday's referendum, what way will you be voting? Yes, no, or undecided? Okay, we've loads of votes. If you haven't voted yet, and we ask you just to vote once, please. So just send a text message, not WhatsApp, just by text, please, for this poll. Text yes, no, or undecided to 0877 98 98 98. We want to get this poll as big a volume of text as we possibly can to make it as accurate as we possibly can. So only by text message, not by WhatsApp, if you don't mind. So text yes, no, or undecided, and send it to us right now to 0877 98 98 98. Now, my final invited guest onto the programme is a lady who wants you to vote yes, and her name is Michelle, and she's a particular story to tell as well. Michelle, take me back to 16 years ago tomorrow.
I was just going out with my boyfriend, about 6 months at the time, and I found out that I was pregnant. To be honest, I was really scared about it. I was scared for what was going to happen in the future. How will I manage with the baby? All of these things. But always thinking along the lines of there was a baby coming, that this is happening. I told my boyfriend at the time, and he was fully supportive with whatever I decided. He was quite quiet about it.
At that time, you were 19?
19, yeah.
19, okay. So your boyfriend was being supportive. He obviously was saying that any decision you make, I'll be behind you.
Exactly, 100%, yeah. He was very quiet on the subject. He was kind of trying not to influence my decision whatever way. But to be honest, there was no thought in my head. It was, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant, this is happening. That's literally where my head was at. There was no other alternatives that I was thinking of at that time. It was only when I went to, I told my sister, who was actually my closest sister, and she reacted kind of okay about it. She was fine. She took my secret and whatever else, but then she told my other sisters, and one of my older sisters is 9 years older than me, and she went straight to my parents, and my parents, it was literally all hell kicked loose in the house.
What did they say when they found out then that their 19-year-old daughter was pregnant? What did they say?
To be honest, at the start, it was more the silence. It was eerily silent, that no one would talk to me. I was literally left alone. Just completely excluded from everybody. Like, I mean, you feel like you're alone anyway at that circumstance, at young at 19. I literally only had my first job. I mean, I was only young, coming out into the world and whatever else, and scared that this was obviously happening. So when they didn't say anything, then the shouting started. My father was horrible. He said, he was roaring things at me like, you're not getting fat around this house. You'll be finding a new roof over your head. There's no way you're keeping that baby. You'll be the most selfish mother in the whole world. It was literally wear me down, wear me down, wear me down. But the worst thing about it was actually they'd already booked it. Like, it was already booked for me to go to England. I didn't even there was no chain of let's sit down and discuss options here. It was literally, this is the date, you're going. You've no choice over it unless you want to go and find a new home and do this all by yourself. And at 19 years of age, I had no guidance. I had nobody to support me in the house. And I was so scared, to be honest, you know. And
okay, so this decision to terminate this pregnancy was made by your parents and not by you.
Yeah, my eldest sister is the one that booked it. She booked a general anaesthetic. I felt so violated. I actually couldn't believe that my sister was actually doing this, putting me down for a general anaesthetic, making every single decision for me. I was actually sick by the whole thing. It was just the worst thing in the world. And then eventually, when you're pushed so far against the wall, your back is against the wall and you've nowhere else to go, I just stopped fighting it.
What's shocking about this is it sounds like a reaction you might have expected from parents back in the 40s or the 50s, but not in 2002.
No, and my parents weren't overly religious. Like, they weren't religious at all, to be honest. I used to go to Mass when I was younger, so it's not even a case of anything like that. It was just a case of, this isn't happening to our family. It's not happening. That's the way it was. It was just, you're not, and you know what, at 19 years of age, with a bit of support, it wouldn't have been like I needed to be supported for 10 or 15 years. I probably would have needed to get on my feet for a year or two and be guided. And then, sure, like me and my partner would have been able to try and make a life for ourselves. But there was just nothing. It was literally dead end. This isn't happening for you. And you have to live with it. And
okay,
that's literally what it was.
So this decision to terminate your pregnancy was forced on you. What was the experience like of travelling to end your pregnancy?
Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. My boyfriend came with me and my mother went. And we went to a place in Ealing in London and had to fly in Aer Lingus, and it's early morning and you're sitting there on the flight with other people. Nobody knows what's going on with you. And you get over there, and when I got there, they ended up giving me a scan, first of all, to make sure that the baby was where it was supposed to be. And not outside the womb. And once they confirmed that, they sent me on to the big house where the procedure takes place. And when I was there, I told the woman who was the nurse that was there that it's not me that wants it. I don't want it. This isn't a choice that I want to make. My mother wants me to have it. My father wants me to have it. This person didn't seem to care either way as to whose decision it was. She just wanted the signature on the end of it. And it was that I ended up signing it because there was nobody. There was literally, if there was even one person that would actually stood up for me back then, I would have probably fought it more. But my boyfriend didn't know at the time what was going on. He was kind of kept in the loop, out in the dark about what was happening. So he kind of just went along with whatever was being told. So obviously then I was there. I had the procedure. I actually woke up screaming after the anaesthetic because I was obviously so traumatised. And that's it then. You're done, and you're back onto an airplane and back home, and don't talk about it again. You know, it's not something that you can talk about. It's not like a miscarriage or anything like that. It's not like I can sit there and say to anybody, you know, this day, such and such, this is the day that I lost my baby, because I didn't. Like, it was terminated, it was ended. And it's the dirtiest secret in the world. And actually, the worst part about the whole thing is, like, he's my husband now. Like, we have 3 absolutely beautiful children, and it's nearly worse because I look at them and I think that they could have looked like this baby. And, you know, my parents don't live with this. They actually don't even think about it. I'm sure it never even enters their head. But I'm 35 years of age, and I will never forget that day. I live with it to the day I die. I'm the one that has to live with it, and they put that decision on me.
Okay,
you know?
Now, a couple of things that interest me about your story is that you are in favour of a yes vote, despite the fact that the termination that you had 16 years ago was forced upon you.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is, and the reason for that is, it's like voting on Friday for me is choice. I didn't get a choice. I actually didn't get a choice. Had I actually made a decision to go to England myself, and actually that was a decision that I had come to myself, I would have been able to live with myself an awful lot better. The fact that I didn't make it and the choice was removed from me, there's so much anger and resentment in me for it. But who am I to say that because I wasn't going to have an abortion, it's certainly not a path that I ever would have thought for myself. As far as I was concerned, I never would have had one. Who am I to actually say that the woman sitting beside me can't decide for herself? For me, it's choice.
But
And I have 2 daughters now, as I said.
If we repeal the 8th Amendment, and if abortion becomes available in this country up to 12 weeks, is there not a risk that other young girls in your sort of situation with complete parental disapproval could be forced even easier into having a termination?
No, I don't believe so, Adrian. I honestly don't, because I tell you, it cost. My parents did not think about the cost taking me over to England. It was done. It was absolutely done. And actually, if you're looking at 2002 versus 2018, flight prices now are, like, it's 20 quid to go to the UK. There's no way that somebody's going to sit there and say that they can't afford the trip. Like,
but what I'm getting at is that if we allow abortion here in Ireland, will that not make it easier for parents to put that sort of pressure on young girls, as happened to you, for them to have a termination here?
Yeah, but as I'm saying, like, it's easy to get to the UK already. That's the point. It's like, it wasn't an issue for my parents in 2000, even all those years ago, 16 years ago, to make me go across to the UK.
Okay,
That's
so you don't believe
already.
that...
It's happening every single day, and it's not going to change if the yes comes through.
You don't believe that if we have a girl in a similar situation to yours, that it's any easier or not, as the case may be?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't actually, I genuinely don't think that that's going to be the case. For me, the main points in actually going through with the voting a yes would be for the women that actually have the issues that they have with their babies, why we're dumping them somewhere else. That's the main reasons why I would obviously vote for it. At the end of the day, I have 2 daughters myself, and God forbid if either of them ever came home and said that they were pregnant to me at 18, 19, they wouldn't be dealt the same hands that I was dealt with when I was 19. They'd be sat down with all the love and support in the world, and they'd be told, these are your options. You have all the options in the world, plus the support of a mother and a father, and you have to make your decision yourself. And if my children decided that was the road that they wanted to choose, then I'd support them on it. But if they wanted to have the baby, I'd support them as well. I just think people need to be able to choose. You know, I just genuinely think that that's something that's not happening in this country. And when you think of it this day and age, you know, equal rights for people, it's crazy. Okay, so in one sentence, Michelle, to wrap up, why are you asking people to vote yes? I can't do it in a sentence, but I'll just to say something that I saw Cillian Murphy quoted yesterday. He said, you're talking about equal rights for women in Ireland. How can it possibly be equal rights when half the rights are removed when pregnant? And for me, that just sums it up completely. It's, in this day and age, it's not equal rights. Women don't have equal rights. And at this day and age, we really should. All right, Michelle, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And thanks very much indeed for joining us on 98 FM. Thanks, Adrian. Cheers.
Here's the result of our poll. We asked you to text in what way you're intending to vote on Friday. And here is the result of that poll. 68% of you said yes. 31% of you said no. And only, certainly for our poll, 1% said you were undecided. So, once again, that is 68% saying yes, 31% saying no, and 1% undecided. So that is the result of our poll. Very interesting results, although you would kind of expect, or I would kind of expect that sort of result from Dublin. It will vary around the country, and obviously it's a national vote, so it'll be averaged out across the country. But here in Dublin, from our listeners, 68% said yes, 31% said no, and 1% are undecided. Now we're going to take a couple of calls on, and in a couple of minutes we're going to be telling you exactly what you are voting for on Friday. But let's take a few calls from you. Anya, you're on 98FM. Hi, Anya.
Hi, Adrian. Thanks for having me.
Anya, on Friday, what way are you voting and why?
I'm voting no, Adrian, because at the end of the day, we cannot decide the biology of a human being based on how we feel about it. And we can do so much better for women in Ireland. To say that abortion is a choice, where is the choice? The choice ends there, in the death of a baby and leaving a mother hurt. And I'm after been listening to that girl there, and my heart absolutely breaks listening to her. And I've had friends in similar circumstances. And for me, when I listen to that girl, what I hear is that she misses her child, and she's grieving for her child.
But interestingly, this was Michelle we were talking to a couple of minutes ago. Interestingly, she is still voting yes, despite the fact that she was basically forced to have an abortion. She is still voting yes.
Yes, and the thing is, and I have an awful lot of friends who, well, not an awful lot, I've 3 or 4 friends that have had abortions. 1 is an acquaintance and 3 are friends. And from what I guess is that when a woman's choice is taken from her in such a circumstance like that, from what I'm listening to from Michelle and what her heart is speaking, is that that choice was the wrong choice. And deep down in her soul, she must know that because she is grieving the loss of her child.
Okay, but what about the lady Katie that we spoke to earlier on, who found herself in a situation where her child was not going to live, but there was nothing could be done for her. She had to travel to Liverpool and bring her dead baby home in a coffin. Okay,
Adrian, and I appreciate that you brought that up because I actually didn't hear Katie's story, but I do know of many similar stories that have happened. And these are in the 3% of hard cases, not the 97% of abortions that happen all the time in England. And what I want to say is, in those circumstances, it's absolutely gut-wrenching and so hard for any woman to listen to. And to be honest with you, if you think about it, and a child like that, and for a woman to make a decision like that, obviously it's torment in itself, you know. But for me, I think the government could have easily added an amendment to deal with cases like Katie and such as rape cases. They could have if they wanted to, but that's not what they're offering us. They are offering us unrestricted abortion to 12 weeks, 6 months on unspecified mental health grounds, and up to 9 months for severe disabilities. Now, I have a friend who had a child with a congenital heart defect, and all through her pregnancy she was told no hope, no hope, no hope. Turns out she was being pushed towards England, as they do sometimes, and the baby is 10 now. Do you know what I mean? So what do you say to that? Like these.
Okay, so you on Friday you are voting no. Irene, you're on 98FM. Hi, Irene.
Hi, Adrian.
Irene,
well done on your debate. Excellent.
Thanks very much indeed. What way are you voting, and why are you voting that way?
I am voting yes. The reason why I'm voting yes is those who do not wish to have an abortion doesn't have to avail of it. It's a simple black and white. Do you want to have an abortion? No, I don't. Okay, don't. But if the person requires to have an abortion, it should be done in our own country, not travelling abroad. And I'd just like to say something, Adrian, on the first gentleman you had speaking. that made a statement that the 8th Amendment saved his life. No, the 8th Amendment did not save his life. His grandparents changed their mind. So that has nothing got to do with the 8th Amendment. My point is, when you listen to women and all the backing that's supposed to be there for women is a joke, my attitude when I sat and heard doctors and people talking and saying a 12-year-old could be raped and let her carry her child, in the name of God, would you like your, God forbid, Adrian, we're all right in spirit, a 12-year-old child to be raped and let her carry a child? I don't think so. I think it should be all available here in Ireland, and those who don't want to avail of it, don't. Simple as that. I don't know what they're making a big deal about. You either want an abortion or you don't, but the choice should be there. That's
okay, thanks very much indeed, Irene. John, what way are you voting and why are you voting that way?
Well, good morning, Adrian, and I have to say your discussion was very well balanced, except for your last caller there. I don't understand where the hell she was coming out. It sounded to me like a liberal vote she was after more than what she was talking about, because it was a confusing story in terms of she didn't want to abort the child, but the family made it. It sounded like a conflict between her and her family. But leaving that, the rest of these stories I found very, very balanced. And
okay,
I have to congratulate you now.
Thank you.
Now, I'm voting no for the simple reason is that the courts in this country have ruled that every child has the right to live. Now, if we inflict abortions in this country, then that ruling, and no child then will be able to live, and will have the right to live. You're taking away the right of an unborn child to live, and that has to be seen as wrong. And again, these posters that are being ripped down by the Yes campaigners, what are they hiding? I'd like to know what the hell they're hiding, because they're ripping down posters for what reason?
Well, no, I have to say, I think taking down posters is wrong from both sides, and it has to be stated. It has to be stated, John, that both sides have taken down posters of the other side.
Yeah, but it seems to be the Yes vote are taking down the no posters now towards the vote on Friday. Why are they doing that? What are they afraid of? The campaign to me at the moment seems like like a woman has the right to choose. What about the baby's right to choose to live? Who thinks of the baby's choice to live? Nobody's thinking about this baby's or the unborn child's right to live.
No, it's very unfair. Sorry, John. It's very unfair to say that nobody is, because there is a very sizable proportion of the population plans to vote no, like yourself, and they obviously are taking that into account. Shauna, what way are you voting, and why are you voting that way?
I'm voting yes, and simple reason is just for women's rights, really, as well. I understand that the fathers have a say as well. But then again, they're not the ones that are carrying the child. I've already carried my own child. And for the whole 9 months, I thought about aborting my child. No, I didn't. But my mental health was just not at the state that it should have been. And I just felt that there was no kind of support there either. And I'm doing it as well for my own sister and my own daughter as well. Because if they're ever in the state that they need, that they're not able to carry their child, or they've been told that they're not going to be able, that their child is not going to survive, or if, God forbid, my daughter has been raped or anything, I want that yes vote there so that she can make the choice, that we don't have to bring her to England or anywhere to get an abortion, and that we can support her at home. Now, I know my own parents may be voting no, but that's their old school, so that's their choice.
All right, Shauna, thank you very much indeed. So there you go. There's some of our listeners' reasons for voting the way that they are voting on Friday. Before we finish, Jeremy is here just to explain briefly what exactly you're voting for on Friday.
Yeah, and I don't mean this to sound, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody by no means. I'm not an expert in the whole referendum issue. But there's just a couple of things that I think people need to be aware of. First of all, the polls will open at 7 a.m. This coming Friday and stay open until 10 p.m. So one of the main questions that's been asked by people, Adrian, is what is the government proposing to do if the amendment is repealed? So in other words, if the yes vote comes in, what is going to happen? Some people think by Monday there's going to be abortion clinics all over O'Connell Street and Grafton Street. That is not going to happen. In the event of a yes vote, Article 40.3.3 will be removed and replaced with an enabling provision stating, okay, so here, this is important, provision may be made by law for the regulation of termination of pregnancy.
Okay, so that is what will be placed into the Constitution, and that then, if there is a yes vote, that passes it on to Dáil Éireann to legislate for abortion.
Yes, so you're not being asked in the referendum to vote on any particular law regarding the termination of pregnancy, okay? It's all to do with the wording and replacing the words that are in the Constitution at the moment with this new provision that states provision may be made by law for the regulation of termination of pregnancy. Now, Simon Harris himself said, Adrian, as I'm sure you were aware yesterday, that if the yes vote goes through, after 12 weeks, abortion will be illegal. Okay, that's key. Abortion will be illegal except in very serious circumstances, i.e. where there is a serious risk to the harm of the life of the mother, and it will have to be certified by 2 doctors. So this, again, a woman won't be able to just go in and say, I'm 14 weeks pregnant and I have this and that wrong with me, I want a termination.
But again, this is proposed legislation.
Yes.
This hasn't been passed by Dáil Éireann or by the Seanad and has to be before it becomes law.
Yeah, so if the yes vote happens to win come Friday, nothing is going to happen straight away. Okay, so the government will all have to sit down and agree. Will have to be decided upon with the Oireachtas and the Dáil and the Senate, I believe.
But the heads of bill that have been proposed are that it will be 12 weeks and illegal after that.
So I will say to everybody very quickly, you got a leaflet in the door. Every single person got a leaflet in the door. Don't go to the polling station without reading that leaflet from front to back.
Okay.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy. Weekdays from 10 a.m. on 98FM.